Sargassum seaweed. It's something that you might not have remembered it as a child. In fact, in my childhood, I don't necessarily remember this phenomenon happening. The only seaweed I saw on any sort of consistent basis was at Pigeon Point, which made Pigeon Point not necessarily the beach that it was the least
still there, by the way. I actually do not like Pigeon Point because of that.
Yes. But however, now, all the way to Florida, Sargassum seaweed is piling upon, inches on coastal beaches. Apparently, within 24 to 48 hours of it washing up on shore, it starts to rot. It's an interesting issue, I guess you could say, because it affects local marine wildlife and ecologies. That could be a problem, again, for our local fishermen, as well as for just the enjoyment of our local beaches. Yes, we don't necessarily have the tourists, but we still, enjoy our own fun in the sun. The idea then, of course, is when you have a problem, what could you do about it? And my co-host, he did find something for a little bit back in the day, but it does beg the question, could we utilize something like this? Just watch, cue this.
Meet Cavendish Atwell, an 82-year-old entrepreneur from Syndicate Lane, St. Lawrence Gap. He has always had a knack for being innovative. An example of his creativity is the way in which he has been utilizing seaweed for the past 4 years in his gardens and to sell to others for use as a fertilizer.
In retirement, you want to do something, and I used to go down to Bath and so regular and see the amount of moss and things down there, and it reminded me that, something Graham Hall used to send cow carts and so down to Dover Beach, when the moss washing, and taking it back to Graham Hall. So I decided, something could be done with this moss, and then I started to work with it.
Before the influx of Sargassum seaweed on several beaches across the island, Mr. Atwell had been visiting Bath Beach in St. John on a regular basis to collect seaweed for his various projects. According to him, the process of bringing seaweed to fertilizer is a simple one.
This is the first phase of it. Now this here dry out a bit, but then you come off the beach, it is in this form. Right? Then, when you get that far, you come over here and put through a second drain where the air passes under and see, the wind comes under here and lifts the salt out. You can actually test it with like this, right? And then you get that far, you put it flat down over here, right? Flat down over there. With metal to give it that crisp drying thing, right? And then from there, then you could test it with your hand. And you could bring it up here. And just run through. You gotta see that relief it in it, huh? Yeah.
Currently, Mr. Atwell sells his products to various supermarkets across the island and also to persons who are involved in backyard gardening. Mr. Atwell believes that Barbadians should see the seaweed as a blessing and is suggesting that government could look into investing in this new venture.
I feel that the government should use one of those factories, either Port Vale or the X1, for 3 or 4 months every year, producing not only seaweed, the sea moss and soda washing all around the country and turn into fertilizer. It is simple, you only have to get started. If they could get the NCC people to rake it up, put it in a bag also, and get it there, and then it could be worked on. You could get it desanded and all those. Same way you get the sand out of it here, I'd be willing to show them how you can get the sand out of it, and we can mix it with the bagasse. You can mix it with the trees from the tamarind and all those evergreen trees that we throw it in the dump, right? Instead of burning outside fertilizer.
With the influx of Sargassum seaweed expected to continue for some time, Mr. Atwell could be regarded as an example to others of how creativity and entrepreneurship can turn a potential problem into profit.
That video courtesy of Barbados Government Information Service. And Ketan, two interesting things to note. One, it seems as though because of human activity and runoffs from farms into rivers, then into the sea, the area where the sargassum blooms used to be an area that was low, that had low nutrients. Now with agricultural
agricultural chemicals wash into the sea. Yeah.
Right, but we're not talking like insecticides. We're talking about fertilizer type chemicals. It's changing the conditions. That's why we're seeing these incredible amounts of sargassum seaweed going, again, from TNT all the way to Florida. One of the other interesting things is, and that then suggests why it's potentially a good source to utilize as input to create fertilizers. But then there's also the fact that potentially with some processing, because sargassum seaweed apparently contains a level of arsenic, so you have to process that out, it has been eaten in certain parts of the world and can be utilized as a food source.
Well, it's actually, sargassum is actually a source that is used to produce agar, which is very good for weight loss. But according to the National Health Institute, based in the United States, it's also excellent for skincare, once processed. Furthermore, there have been studies which suggest that sargassum, as by this entrepreneur in Barbados points out, is a very good fertilizer, because what happens when it loses its buoyancy, it sinks to the bottom of the sea, and it becomes a source of nutrients for other plants in the ocean as well as fish. But it's also used to help with erosion, because it's very good nutrition. It's also very compact once utilized properly.
Right.
So there are many benefits to sargassum, which is why I like how he's suggesting it could be seen as a blessing. Now, it's a lot. Too much sargassum is not good at all. And the smell is absolutely
because it's
terrible.
rotting.
It's rotting. So it actually smells like rotting fish. But there is opportunity here. Because with the cost of feed going up around the world, sargassum, when properly processed, could be used as feed for livestock. There are benefits to show that it is very much nutritious for livestock, and it is used in other parts of the world. So from problem to profit, which is an excellent line for this particular video and this particular segment, Trinidad and Tobago, there are benefits from sargassum. Could we see those benefits? Is it going to take some young entrepreneur to actually see those benefits and try to utilize it? Well, I hope we take some inspiration from that.
It seems as though at least Florida sees sargassum March to October. So while seasonal, it is a good enough chunk of the year that you could potentially try to figure out how to, commercialize this, natural product without having to, worry about consistency, without having to say, but it's only available at X amount of times or X number of months per year. And you're right. Not only could be a boon to our agricultural sector, but we already import seaweed for Japanese-style seaweed salads and in sushi restaurants, and even certain convenience stores might have it just as a separate salad, there's some sort of, part of a gourmet offerings or like coleslaw and salads and stuff like that and dips and what have you. And you can't say that there's no demand for seaweed as a product in TNT. It's just, yeah, we'll import it, but when we have an abundance here, are we willing to make use of it?
March to October, that's what, about 7 months of the year. With the amount of seaweed that you're getting in that 7 months, we could do more than... 8 months. 8 months. The amount of seaweed that you're getting within that 8 month span. I mean, if you, I don't know what was the last time that you were able to drive along the coast in Lowlands, at the back of Magdalena, along that stretch there.
I can imagine.
It's blanketed. The sea is blanketed. The sea is brown, actually. The water there is brown. And there's barely a spot of sand in sight.
It would be a shame if all we do is clean up the beaches by bagging it and dumping it.
But we're not even cleaning it up.
Well,
I can't
exactly.
say that we are. I mean, I not in Trinidad. I've been to a number of beaches in Tobago, and the seaweed has just overtaken the beach and the coastline. Now,
there is, I guess you could say there's some hope to say, well, in the long run, this might benefit the coastal ecosystems and the shores, and the waters just off of Tobago. But yes, the amount could be damaging in the short term, maybe even in the long term, depending on how it's managed and a whole host of other factors that I don't know of. So it's questionable if it could be left alone to its own devices and to see what happens. Because yes, usually with nature, you don't want to interfere with it, but we already technically interfered from the source. So now we do have to, this is not necessarily a natural occurring phenomenon to some extent, so we can't expect that nature will figure it out. We might not like the answer.
The thing is, we could figure it out. So 3 things. And I don't even know if the government has actually seen this or even thinks about this. But
somebody's probably already told them.
3 things. 1, fertilizer, as exemplified by that video.
Yep.
2, feed for livestock.
Yep.
Could help our situation because, as you know, there was an entire issue with the shortage and the cost. And 3, the production of agar.
And I just like to point out, and you're right, where the gentleman said this could be a blessing. Food security, we just spoke about it being a problem in the region. And here we have, for lack of a better way to put it, extra biomass, a source coming from the Atlantic that we never necessarily had before 2011 or so. Why can't we utilize it?
Oh, we've always had it, not to this extent.
Not to this extent. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, let's take a break here on Talking Point, but we hope we've got your minds jogging a bit this morning, and maybe there's opportunity for you. So I'm not saying go out there and grab as many bags of sargassum as you can, but if you think that you can utilize it and use your entrepreneurial skills as well, then maybe it's just a second income for you.